Okay. Hi friends, what's going on? How we doing? It is hot today, but we're here, we're happy, we're thriving. If you hear or see this fan, it's like the only thing keeping me alive right now. So, I have an AC coming, but it's not right now. So we're just gonna go with it anyway. Okay, we have some stuff to talk about. Yeah, and on this channel we talk about mental health, and ways and emotional health and ways to really help ourselves and help ourselves move through. I can't even tell if this is like really focused. And I want to talk about something that I don't really know is talked about very much, is acknowledged very much, is definitely important, especially for people who have dealt with and continue to deal with mental health, mental illness, emotional problems, emotional disturbances. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I really like to focus on the internal experience, whatever it is, whatever we label as negative, whatever words we have for it, kind of what's happening right now. And then I will explain how, us peeps with mental health struggles, like how we're kind of dealing with all of this and how hard it is, and then what we can kind of do about it. So there's going to be 4 parts to this video. This isn't going to be the most extensive view in the world. It really is just to show how our culture has shifted to what it is now. Part 2 is going to be the implications of this. So what does this culture shift do to people with mental health and emotional health struggles? What sort of implications does it have? Part 3 is going to be what people can do to support themselves in this time. And part 4 is how do you look beyond the coping and suffering and hardness to how do you embrace joy, fulfillment, whatever you're kind of looking for. So timestamps are going to be down below, and I'll see you there. Yeah, whenever there's like a huge change and shift in society, the world, any sort of major event, that is the usually the catalyst and the trigger for a lot of people to commit suicide. A lot of people to unalive, as they say. And I don't get monetized anyway, I don't care. But a lot of people are really feeling how our current culture, especially in the United States, but I know what kind of happens here trickles out very often. We impact a lot of other areas because that's what empire does. But our current culture is very much like I think we all kind of feel it. I don't know if this camera is focusing. I mess with the settings, and I hope this is better. I think it's focusing on me. I think a lot of us feel it. It can feel very negative. It can feel very almost like trapping, like people's opinions of others, how harsh they can be, and just this like general sense of people don't care about other people. People don't want others to succeed. There's a lot of bullying, right? There's a lot of harassment, and it's just kind of viewed as okay, especially in this age of the internet where the internet is just not really regulated. Oops. And there's just a lot of shit that goes down on social media, and I think a lot of us are feeling like this is a reflection of greater society. Like this is a reflection of how the world is, and people with mental illness can I can't even tell you how many times I felt this. It's like, if you deal with chronically wanting to unalive yourself, any reason is a reason to do it, right? So for me, I used to be a lot about climate change and like the state of the world, and the world's going to shit. So like, why do I care? Why do I want to change things? Why do I want to get better at myself when everything's going to fall apart anyway, right? I might as well just stay where I am. I might as well just stay stuck, right? Because it's just like a good enough reason to. It's the fodder that my depression needs. It's the fodder that my anxiety needs to say, the world is not to be trusted. I need to stay put. I need to stay inside my house. I need to not talk to anyone, not trust anyone, right? Disconnect. Because people are scary. People are judging me. You know, there are people just like on Twitter right now. And yes, I'm calling it Twitter. Just saying like horrendous things all the time, helping people in camps. It can feel like there is no empowerment, that there is no space for compassion, for light, for hope, right? And I know that this is a trigger for a lot of people, because it's been a trigger for me, and I can't be the only one with this experience. So a lot of people are feeling triggered about the state of the world, thinking, you know, maybe I should just relapse, like maybe I should just not care about the people, fit in, right? I should go back in the closet. A lot of people are going back in the closet because of our current culture. A lot of people are resorting to bullying, you know, taking things in the worst possible light. You know, a lot of that is happening, and it's very true. And we, first off, need to accept that it's happening and our feelings about it, because it is very overwhelming at times, and it is hard to see on a daily basis people tearing other people down all the time and other people cheering it on. Like, people's suffering seems to be something that other people enjoy. It seems to be something that humans have enjoyed a lot throughout history, like just seeing other people die, other people squirm, other people suffer. I personally don't understand. I've never seen someone like suffer and then we get some sort of joy out of it, but I have just noticed that it is a very common human experience, and therefore, you know, maybe I'm the outlier, I don't know, but I think it's so weird about like reality TV shows and like those TV shows where you see people like compete for like $1 million or something, and like they have to like go through all these trials and things, and it's very, just to me it's almost like Squid Games-esque. Like Squid Games did it. Like Squid Games just like said what I was feeling the entire time. Like, this is actually messed up, because these people probably, like, if those people wanted to do that, that's like a one thing, but the people are just probably there for the money or the prize. So like, I think there is like a show though where people just sign up for it just for it. It's like Daredevil or something, I don't know, but, or starts with a J, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But people want to see others suffer. People want, and it really, I feel like a lot of it just boils down to all the lessons that we were pretending that we had learned in our society, especially in the United States, about bullying, about putting, you know, pegging others down to peg yourself up, right? Or putting others down to peg yourself up, and hurting others just for the sake of it, or for your own ego, or because you're insecure, or you haven't dealt with it, or you want to fit in. All of these things that we kind of had said, oh yeah, we understand this and we don't want it to happen again, like we're letting it happen again. And the reason we're letting it happen again is because it never stopped in the first place. At least not in the way that we assumed it did. And let me tell you about that nuance, because things have shifted in terms of this, like, you know, a lot of acceptance to not acceptance, but this is kind of a lot of the times how society is. It's not exactly the way that the mainstream is painting it. So I'll explain. So yes, first let me talk about kind of like where our culture was a couple years ago into now, briefly, because I could talk about that forever. And let's just not like delve into it for no reason. So well, there is a reason, but I want to just be succinct about it. So we, as a culture, were, you know, very much feminist, girl boss, like, let's, you know, talk about intersectional feminism. You know, you could say liberals were controlling the culture, ideology, etc. And then, especially since Trump in 2016 won the presidential election, and, you know, in 2024 won the presidential election, you know, we've seen a really sharp turn to conservatism, and all of the, you know, really big cons that come with that. A lot of the bigotry coming back, a lot of hatred, and Sorry, too many thoughts are happening in my head. A lot of the bullying, a lot of the kind of just like blatant oppression that conservative ideology often holds, and it can almost feel a bit jarring to even talk about, because kind of like, weren't we just at a very different place very recently? And the answer is yes, we were. And the thing is that even when we were there, we were just kind of really starting to untangle a lot of this, just starting to really hear the stories of people who would talk about their childhoods, talk about how they're so happy things are changing because now they can be more themselves, right? And now we're kind of turning more into like, you need to conform, you need to like stop trying to be yourself individually. And the thing about where we were was that it wasn't just like so many more people are liberal and then so many more are conservative, right? What the difference is with this is the rise in fascism. And it's more than just a rise. It's more than just a rise. I think we need to stop saying it's a rise. It's here. It's been here. And if you are like, oh no, despair when I say that, just hold on with me, okay? I'm gonna hold your hand through this, okay? Because I'm just kind of explaining right now. I'm explaining, and I'm hoping when I explain even more about what you're dealing with, it'll help people A, understand, and then also B, you'll feel validated if you're dealing with this. But so just hold my hand right now. We'll get through this together, okay? Fascism has been here, and the thing about fascism is that it culturally needs to dominate, right? It needs to change. And this has been kind of the conservative strategy. Like, they kind of realize that they need to get the culture back on their side. They need to start influencing it in that way again, and not just through policy and through, government power, because that's not popular or sustainable in terms of long-term control and power. Fascism, a key component of it is to get everyone not on the same page. So this is what happened when alternative facts started to be sprinkled into our narrative, right? A lot of this info I'm kind of getting to is from How Fascism Works. I'll put the author's name. I'm forgetting the author's name in this moment, and I don't want to get up to go get it. But, a key component is us not being on the same page about things, and us not being able to have a shared reality as a society to actually say, that's what this is and that's what that is. And you'll kind of see this, like, something that's been interesting to me to notice. I say interesting like it's not. It doesn't have ramifications, but sometimes I help for me to intellectualize it. It's something that's been interesting for me is to see like one incident. So take like when ICE was like low-key killing people in the street. Low-key high-key, really. And people were talking about that incident and just like seeing how liberals, leftists, conservatives, and alt-right conservatives are not even close to where left people are, by the way. But anyway, just putting it out there for myself. Just seeing how all these groups of people would react to the same thing, and how the narrative would even be similar, like, oh, the Dems are telling you that you need to shut your eyes and not see the truth. The Republicans are telling you that you need to not even acknowledge the facts of the situation. And it's like, these people are just living totally different realities, right? Like, regardless of which one is the most true. And it's hard to get on the same page about anything. And that is a key component of fascism and controlling people, influencing people. And with this, bullying, with harassment from other people towards other people, it really is just to, it's for people in power. They want things to be a certain way, right? Nazi ideology is very much in our culture and our government. Hold my hand. If that was hard for you, hold my hand. We're gonna get there. But so this is all to say to you that we didn't just go from when we were in 2010s, early 2020. It wasn't just this sort of like, please focus back on me. It wasn't this like, oh, things were getting so much better, and then all of a sudden all these people like turn conservative or whatever. These people own the tech companies. They own the biggest social media, right? This is not a very popular opinion, okay? Nazism is not the culturally dominant ideology of people. Like, it's just not that popular, right? But it's made to seem like it's bigger than it is. It's made to seem like we need to conform very fast to get away from this bullying, harassment, and eventually institutional government overreach into people's lives, where, you know, we're talking about Nazi Germany, right? What happens when... That was a very long-winded way to kind of explain where we're at. Of course, there's probably so many other pieces that I've missed. I know I could probably name a million of them. And this really isn't the point of this video. You can research a lot of reasons as to why we're here in this very moment and the reason that we're here. I'm really just talking about from a mental health perspective right now, to kind of just touch on the pain points. But this causes a lot of people with mental illness to... their anxiety goes up. Their depression spirals go further down. People who deal with unreality, right, and dissociation, they're like, no one can really get on the same page about any of this. This causes people who are minorities, who are specifically being targeted, to have exacerbated experiences in terms of depression, anxiety, negative mental health, and emotional health spirals. And this really disproportionately impacts people with mental health because, let's just say, in a supportive, helpful society, like, people with mental health, like, this is where people who maybe don't struggle with mental emotional health are, and this is where people who do struggle with mental emotional health are. If it goes down for the people who are doing great, it's also really going to go down for people who have mental emotional problems. You know, when we have a society that is working, that is functional, that's supportive, that's accepting, people who deal with mental health problems are still like a bar lower. We're still not showing up in the world, right, in ways that are deemed typical, normal. There's oppressive regimes, or the culture is more harsh. The culture is less accepting. You know, people are just left to their own devices. That is when it gets harder. And that is when things get harder for people with mental health, and then all this stuff starts to come up for them. Because things are harder, you know, people start to self-sabotage more, right? They start to hurt themselves more to cope. They have more suicidal ideation. They have a lot more spirals, or just spiral more easily, and there's not a lot of support around them, either through, like, you know, major institutions or just social support, right? Social support is so big in mental health. Like, it's not just like we're going to therapy and stuff like that. It's like, what are, you know, supportive communities, right? Supportive families. This is also really terrible for people who, you know, what they struggle with is something that society is projecting currently. So I'll give an example. So let's just say someone is irrationally, and I don't say irrationally in a non-compassionate way, irrationally afraid that people are going to kill them if they go outside their house. And then you have people online being like, you know, killed this group of people, like, just on a major public platform, or politicians or whatever. That is fodder for that negative spiral for this person to be like, why should I leave my home when the culture around me and the people around me are, you know, saying this? Like, it's just confirming the fear. So, and some people have to spend the entire day telling themselves, I'm safe. No one's breaking into my home. I go outside, I go to the grocery store, like, nothing's happening. Like, this is real, right? People have to spend their entire days telling their brain that, and then there they see it online, and they're like, oh, well, I guess it's true. Like, I guess it's true. This is also the thing why some people will spiral even more, because people are just confirming the fears. It causes people to spiral, and unfortunately, it causes people to disappear. People's protective parts are just trying to protect themselves, their body and brain trying to protect themselves, which then really halts, you know, regulating the nervous system. It really halts healing, right? It holds pathways and can cause you to go backwards. It can cause people to, you know, whatever kind of shows up for them when You know, maybe they give up on life or they don't care, right? They stop going out, they stop eating or seeing people. You know, it's isolation, depression. This all spirals, it compounds on each other, which is why we try to build a compassionate, loving society with good supports so that people can thrive as much as possible. Things are shifting, right? When things shift, as I said in the beginning of this video, when there's major shifts, right? So you can think about major trends in society, like 2008 financial crisis. Suicide rates went up because people lost their jobs, right? You know that happened during COVID, okay? And you know that it happened 2024 presidential election results and all the shifts that have happened since then. And that's what these people want, okay? They want people to literally unalive. They want the opposition, they want people with compassion to be not in the picture, right? That is the fucking goal. I'm just getting mad because it's not fair to you if you are dealing with a lot of mental health spirals and mental health stuff right now, and it's not fair to all of us to have to keep going through this cycle where we, turn on the news or we scroll on social media and we feel so depressed, we feel so angry, and it triggers us, okay? It makes us feel even worse about our realities when our internal experiences are already hard enough, okay? Our internal experiences are already hard enough. We already have to deal with so much just to show up in daily life, right? To really calm ourselves down, to show up like we're like everyone else, woo. And then I'm like, hello, now you're gonna add that we're going to war in all these different places and that everyone's fighting with each other and like the government's trying to do what now? Like, I'm not even saying anything specific with that. That's just timeless. Like, the government's doing what now? Doomerism, doom scrolling. I feel like it affects us a lot deeper too because we're more sensitive to that kind of stuff. Where it's just like we see something in our outer world and it could trigger a panic attack, it could trigger a depression spiral, right? Where someone else might see it and it's fine. It just kind of gets them down, but maybe they kind of bounce back, or they're like, I don't really think about it or whatever. Whereas for people with mental illness, it's literally like, this is the reason I shouldn't be living. Like, and it can kind of alienate you too and make you feel like, why am I feeling so deeply about something that other people are not feeling? I guess I'm going into this purpose. Why am I dealing with something that other people are not dealing with and can seemingly just move on with the rest of their day, right? And this also just calls into question diagnosis in general, because it's like, if you're just reacting to the world around you and it's making you sad, like that's normal. In my honest opinion, if you are feeling discouraged, if you're feeling depressed about the state of the world, I feel like that's more normal than not. I feel like it makes more sense than not feeling anything about what's going on. This is a huge thing. This is really bad for people where their like fears are based around how society is, right? Like sort of that society's out to get them. And then you literally see people on the internet, like on a mainstream internet, being like, let's go put these people in camps. Like, you're trying to convince yourself all day that not everyone around you wants to do that, and then we literally just see it online. Like, that is so bad for people. I could just and squeezing your hand. And it's hard. It's hard to be constantly triggered in this way of, this is the state of the world. And so, like I said, now we're going to, I think I've touched a lot upon how this feels for people with mental, emotional illness and negative experiences. If I didn't name your experience in particular, feel free to comment it, like how the state of the world has been affecting your mental health, your emotional health, because I think it's been affecting a lot of us in a very deep way, in a very profound way. And I know it's triggered a lot of SI for a lot of people. A lot of I'm not monetized. A lot of suicidal ideation in people. It's it's halted people's depression recovery. It's halted people's anxiety, panic, unreality. You name it. This has triggered and set back a lot of people. And now let's talk about what we can really do about this. So when you are also someone who cannot show up all of the time, where showing up is very difficult for you, you have to give yourself grace and compassion, right? If you're just surviving day to day, like with mental health struggles, and you're really just trying to live, right? I'm talking like that baseline, like you're really just trying to muster the will to live. That is what you focus on. You don't focus on the world and what's happening around you, right? We need to, working on yourself and how you feel about things is not taking away or some sort of thing to feel guilty about or something to step away from at this time, because while we're dismantling what we're working on, we're always trying to embrace and work towards the world that we're trying to build, right? And part of the world that we're trying to build is a lot more nice to people and understanding of people's struggles, right? And not demonizing them, not punishing them for literally having human experiences, instead of supporting them, right? Like, let's support people. And so you might have to support yourself more during this time emotionally, right? I feel like I constantly have to tell myself things to like not spiral in this landscape of culture and society right now, like being like, people don't really know me. They don't know me. They don't understand how I feel, how I act, whatever. I decide what is best for me, right? If I need to step away and people are mad at me or they don't get it, that's their problem, okay? Not everyone can really do that, especially if you live with certain people. There's so many different situations, and I want to honor that. So it's really just as much as you can, right? As much as you can, step back and put yourself first, right? Put your mental health first. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm not talking about, disconnecting because it's hard. I'm talking about if you, you have to disconnect sometimes. You can't just do the work, you can't show up, or you just can't digest all this information all the time. It's not good for humans. Honor how you feel about it. Honor what shows up for you and tend to it. Tend your garden, tend to yourself, do that self-care, right? What I want to offer in terms of the state of the world right now is that things are never stagnant. Oh, we are not focused. Things are never stagnant, right? Things don't stay where they are. The puppet masters in the world stage, they are not going to be puppet masters forever. And the current circumstances that we're in are not going to be the circumstances forever. Can we focus? Thank you. As regimes fall, governments change, culture changes, right? The first thing we really have to do is honor our feelings, okay? Because when we're going through all of this, it can constantly feel like we are overwhelmed, and that is the goal, okay? That is the goal of fascist regimes, is that they want to overwhelm us, right? There's too much going on. So if you have to disconnect for your mental health, that is valid. You need to take care of you, right? The seasons of the earth, what am I saying right now? You can think of this too as the seasons of the earth. The earth shifts from 4 seasons, right, on a clock, and this isn't going to be by this time all this is going to be done and finished and we've moved on and our culture's nicer and we're back to a better place. But things are never the same, and if we keep working towards this world that we want to build, especially for us people with mental health challenges and things like that. I was so flabbergasted by my metaphor that I just forgot to explain it. So by the seasons of the earth, I really mean just as the seasons change, so do societies and governments and cultures. It's just the timing and things like that. Just making it clear. If things aren't shifting globally and on a macro scale the way that we want, we focus on the internal then while also working on the world. But if we're not able to do that, or you're not gonna do that all the time, right? We need to focus on ourselves, right? We need to focus on taking care of ourselves. We need to focus on challenging the narratives that go on in our brains that everyone hates each other, that people, don't care about each other, they're not compassionate. And all of that is happening. Okay, we are seeing that every single day. Trust me, I get harassment on the internet quite often, and for me being who I am. And so I'm not saying this to say it's not happening, or that this, your feelings aren't valid. It is to say that things will shift, okay? The wheel will turn. The state of the world is not going to be the state of the world right now. So just as if the state of the world was different, we need to work on ourselves. And right now, we also need to work on ourselves and just take care of ourselves, right? We're also our own individual human beings. And that's okay, and that's like valid, and whatever you need during this time is valid, okay? And if you don't know what you need, you're figuring out what you need, you mess up, that's okay too. Like, this can be a hard time, right? This can feel like a hard time. And taking care of yourself is important. And regardless of what's going on in the bigger macro scale world, things are still happening internally and also just in our orbit of life, in our orbit of our day-to-day, right? Life keeps happening. You fall in love, you get new opportunities, you meet new people, you find something new that really brings you a lot of joy, right? Like, it's life keeps happening. And just because the world is kind of in trouble, maybe in crisis a little bit, that doesn't mean we forget about ourselves and abandon ourselves, right? We can't abandon ourselves because the world's abandoning itself. We can't. So the world keeps spinning, right? And we kind of wait for things to shift, right? Again, I'm not saying this thing got passive, we're just waiting on the sidelines. Like, you show up whenever the ways you want to show up, change the world. But as we wait for the cycle of the world and greater culture to change, let's also trust in the process of our internal change, right? Sorry, I'm like so close now. It's just like how it wants to focus, but let's embrace the internal change that happens too, right? Whatever you were working on kind of in your recovery, in your mental health journey, in your healing journey, your joy journey, whatever it is, what step are you at, and where are we going from there? What are we building upon? What are we trying to change about our internal experience? Are we trying not to spiral as much? Are we trying to build more joy into our lives, right? Happiness, laughing. We're trying to build more connection with other human beings, to challenge these narratives, right? What are we doing to try and help our internal selves to challenge the negative internal... Hello, I'm right here, and now you're not going to focus? This is bad. What is the... Does it need this? Is that what it needs? No, we're not doing that. That looks awful. I don't like that. I'm like, you want me to be right here, camera? I'll be right here. Yeah, you trust in our own internal processes in order to heal and thrive, get through the day, and embrace the positive aspects of it, like holding the negative and embracing the positive. That's always what I talk about. Holding the negative and embracing the positive, holding the contrast, accepting the two sides of the coin, because, we so often, as people with mental health experiences, have delved so deep into the negative, and we kind of have to retrain our brains and bodies to, kind of go to that other side of the coin as well, that other experience of positivity, of calmness, right? Which can become our, dominant way that we show up. But if not, if for some people's experiences, it is like you just kind of oscillate back and forth between these extremes, and that's okay. Our bodies and brains are just trying to, deal with this reality the best way that it can, and this reality can be hard. So trust in that process, right? If the outer world can't be trusted, trust your internal process. Trust what you are doing for yourself, to show up for yourself, to change your internal circumstance. Not relying on the outer world to, dictate what you are feeling about yourself. Okay, what you are feeling about your mental health journey, how you are showing up for yourself. Are not showing up for yourself right now. It's so easy to abandon yourself. Can we be so for real right now? It is so easy to abandon yourself, and it is work and hard work to show up and say, nope, I'm not going to do that. How do we look beyond suffering? how do we look past it? I think, you know, if you really don't know where to start, or you're kind of like restarting your process of like I don't know, re-engaging with joy and you know, what's not doomerism and depression, like I think it's about finding really what sparks you, what you know, what brings you purpose, what brings you passion, right? What feels the most true to you, right? I feel like it's about really tapping into you know, what do you yearn for? Okay, what I think was kind of what I was talking about before, like with connection, or with whatever it is, whatever shows up for you. Like what deeply do you want to work towards and want more into your life, right? And you know, or is it more creative? Is it like writing or singing or art, right? These are all things that we can really tap into to, one, process what's going on in this world, outer and inner. If you don't have a process of coping with your experiences, you can check out my other videos. I have like specific frameworks for dealing with some mental emotional health experiences. You can also check out my shop if you want to figure out a specific trigger. I have some tools, resources in there. I have free training, so check out the description box. There's some supports for you, because we're here to help. We're here to help. And also too, you know, move towards what we actually want in our lives, right? Brings us closer to that joy, that happiness, that fulfillment, to process the inner and the outer and work towards what we want to work towards. And ultimately, you know, what makes us feel the most protected, what makes us feel the most connected to other people, right? And you can think about this in a couple different ways in terms of like physical protection, and physically protect yourself wherever, you know, way feels most safest and best for you, but also internal protection, like the internal, like, I don't know, for me, I feel like, especially like after I've been getting hate on the internet or whatever, I've been like, it's actually made me a lot stronger to be like, I really don't care what people think about me. Like, I feel like it's kind of brought me closer to that sort of like, people just don't get it, and that's fine. I really don't care. And if they want to do X, Y, and Z about it, throw me in a fucking camp, like, come at me. No, not come at me, but that's not the type of energy I'm actually trying to be with about it. Just more like, is this really what you want to do? But you know, what sort of internal boundaries can you set? What sort of things can you say, like, I'm only going to be on social media for this amount of time, or I'm going to delete my social media, right? Or I'm not going to believe this narrative. I'm going to do, you know, this thing when I start to feel hopeless. I'm going to start to listen to this song when I start to feel hopeless. I'm going to recite this line to myself, right? You know, you can kind of think about, I like to have pocket strategies. Like, for me, there's one that I have hanging up on my wall that I found in like some poetry book, and it's about how the work is never done. And to me, it always combats that like part of me that's like, oh, that like wants the work to be done, that wants the work to be over. I might make a dedicated video on this one day, but basically it's making specific plans for specific internal experiences. So an example would be, every time I catch myself going into a depression spiral, I tell myself my brain is lying to me and do an activity that's comforting. Another example is, every time I have SI, I go through a checklist of why I'm still here, and then I go through another checklist of what helps me feel safe, grounded, and reconnect with people around me, with what I enjoy in life, etc. So you make those types of plans and you stick with them. And those types of plans are usually kind of specific to you, right? Like, who are you as a person? Because some people are very much like, I want checklists, I want it all to be written down. Some other people, you know, are more just like, you know, it's more fluid, right? They need more options. Not necessarily something they write down, but something they keep in their head. Again, I have tools down in the description box, free trainings. Check out my shop and everything if you feel like you need support with that. Check out my other videos to get some frameworks for it, so you can have more tools to help yourself. And doesn't want to keep, you know, having to work towards happiness and regulating myself and all that. It's like, the work is never done. So, and that's okay. So, you know, how can you keep yourself, you know, how can you keep yourself protected? How can you connect with other people in your community, or animals, whatever it is for you? And how can you keep yourself purposeful? How can you keep yourself on the track of keeping going, basically keeping going with what makes you feel like you have purpose in this world, that you are passionate about, right? How are we protecting that? How are we moving towards that? And finally, like, what brings you life source? What brings you joy? What brings you happiness, right? Because that's kind of the goal. And it's kind of like that line of, we're protecting, we're accepting how we feel, and then we're protecting ourselves, and we are finding what works for us, right? And then we cultivate it, and we tend to our garden. We do more of it until we kind of figure out what brings us joy. And we might have to, twist and turn and change what that is a lot of the time, because that's life. And sometimes that just makes us feel hopeless as human beings. But I hope I really got my point across, that instead of focusing on the world, letting the world dictate how we feel about ourselves, our state of the world, our state of everything, is that we choose ourselves, and that we have to work on our own stuff, okay? And that we're gonna get through this, okay? We're gonna get through this. And when we get through it, in the meantime, we have a life to live. In the meantime, life doesn't stop. So, how do we take care of ourselves the best that we can in this moment, and what can we do about it? So, as you can see throughout this video, I kept in the parts that were blurry, and this was intentional. Like, as I was editing, I was like, we are going to keep this in, because I felt like this was very indicative of the the way that I'm kind of presenting this framework to deal with our current society and culture. So what I mean by this is that I was going through a cycle with tech, right? And I still am, because tech stuff is hard for me. I'm like, if it's not the audio, it's the video, it's something else, right? But I deal with the problem that's right in front of me, because my base instinct is to give up. My base instinct is to be like, I don't want to do this. That's my base instinct for the work too. It's always just like, I'm just gonna give up. I don't care. It's the blurriness, right? It's probably the shutter frame. Fuck shutter frames. But there's a problem. I work on it and I learn more. Okay, that's all I have for you today. It is so hot, so I am gonna leave. I was gonna film more, but I'm done. And now we're not focusing. I need to figure out this focusing thing now. This is actually insane. Well,